I'm delighted to, to support and have Drug Policy Alliance support the ayahuasca, defense fund. I mean, the bottom line is that the war on drugs is not just about heroin and cocaine and methamphetamine and marijuana, cannabis. It's also about about ayahuasca, about the plant-based substances. It's about the ways in which both indigenous peoples as well as, people in the US and Europe and other places are still discriminated against and have to live in fear because of the use of these substances. It's the ways in which we still have to deal with, criminal enforcement by law enforcement and idiotic prosecutions by government agencies against people engaged in this, whether they're leading ceremonies or whether they're simply, using these substances for their own personal reasons. So I think it's incredibly important what you're doing. I mean, it's actually quite interesting because we oftentimes think about the United States as having the harshest drug war in the world, but I think this is an area where we see many of the prosecutions regarding ayahuasca happening even more in Europe, which generally has a more benign drug policy than the U.S. And I think it's crucially important that in those countries in Europe or in Latin America, where we expect better by government agencies, that there are folks like you standing up, and like the network of attorneys that you've recruited and helped organize around the world to prevent this sort of oppressive practices by governments. When we look to the future and we look at the role of psychedelics, of ayahuasca, plant-based substances, non-plant-based substances, the fact is there's going to be important medical uses of these things. There's going to be important religious and spiritual uses. But ultimately, we need to move in the direction of ending the criminalization of any adult's use of these substances, right? Even if they don't fall within the medical or spiritual religious categories. And at some point, even further down the road, we're going to need to figure out how people can obtain the psychoactive substance they want from sources that are reliable, where they know what they're getting, and where we minimize the risks associated with their use. So thank you ever so much for the work that you're doing on this front. I deeply appreciate it.